You're sitting in a steakhouse. A server places a perfectly cooked ribeye in front of you. Steam rising. Juices still sizzling. And right there on the table sits that familiar brown bottle, wrapped in paper. You know exactly which one. You grab it, ready to shake a few drops onto your steak. Until someone says, "Hey, can you pass the how do you even say that?" Worcestershire sauce. Yeah, even the name causes problems. But here's what most people don't realize. This strange, hard-to-pronounce sauce has one of the most unbelievable backstories in all of food history. It wasn't carefully designed. It was a total accident. Ignored for months in a dark basement. And somehow, it went on to become a global staple, found on tables from London to Tokyo, and even in a small Central American country that uses more of it per person than anywhere else on the planet. So let's break it down. Let's trust the process. And before we go any further, it's pronounced Worcestershire, not Worcester. If you've been mispronouncing it this whole time, don't worry, you're definitely not alone. Worcestershire sauce is a fermented liquid seasoning. It's thin, deep brown, and almost impossible to describe with a single word. It's sharp, savory, slightly sweet, and just a little funky. On its own, it's nothing special. But the moment it touches food, something changes. Steak suddenly tastes deeper. Bloody Marys gain that unmistakable bite. Even a simple grilled cheese feels elevated. Now let's rewind to where it all started. The year is 1835, in Worcester, England. Two chemists, John Wheely Lee and William Henry Perrins, ran a modest pharmacy. They weren't celebrity inventors or famous chefs. They sold remedies, mixed compounds, and stocked everyday goods. Then one day, a wealthy nobleman walked through their door with a strange request. During his travels in India, he had tasted a sauce unlike anything he'd had before. He wanted that flavor recreated back home. Lee and Perrins agreed to try. They blended vinegar, molasses, anchovies, tamarind, garlic, onions, and a mix of spices. When they finally tasted the result, it was a disaster. Overpowering. Harsh. Completely unbalanced. Nothing like the sauce the nobleman remembered. Still, they filled a barrel for the customer, and made an extra batch for themselves, hoping that with time, it might somehow improve. It didn't get better. So they did what anyone does with a failed experiment: they sealed the barrel, carried it down to the cellar, and forgot it ever existed. Then, 18 months later, while cleaning out the basement, they came across it again. Ready to throw it away, they hesitated. Curiosity won. They opened the barrel. The smell was different. Deeper. More layered. They tasted it. It was incredible. Whatever happened in that dark, quiet basement had completely transformed the mixture. The harshness was gone. The sharp notes had softened. Every flavor had blended into something smooth, balanced, and surprisingly complex. By 1837, Lee and Perrins began bottling the sauce. By the 1840s, it had spread beyond Worcester. And by the 1850s, it was being shipped across the world, to America, India, and Australia. The paper-wrapped bottle became instantly recognizable. The recipe became a closely guarded secret. And it still is today. So what's actually inside it? The exact formula is locked away, known only to a small group inside the factory. But the core ingredients are no mystery: vinegar, molasses, sugar, salt, anchovies, tamarind extract, onions, garlic, and spices like cloves and chili peppers. Some believe soy sauce plays a role as well. The real star is the anchovies. Small, oily fish that are left to ferment and age. As they break down, they release glutamates, the chemical source of umami. That deep, savory flavor you can taste but can't quite name. But ingredients alone aren't enough. What truly makes this sauce special is time. Fermentation. Patience. The process begins with anchovies packed in layers of salt, left to ferment inside barrels for months. During this time, natural enzymes start breaking down proteins, releasing amino acids that form deep, savory flavor. While that's happening, the rest of the ingredients are prepared. Onions and garlic are finely chopped. Tamarind is soaked to extract its tangy pulp. Spices are gently toasted, then ground to release their aroma. Everything is brought together with vinegar and molasses, forming a thick, dark mixture. Then comes the most important step. The blend is transferred into enormous wooden barrels and left to age. Not for days. Not for weeks. But for at least 18 months. Over time, the sharp acidity softens. The sweetness becomes richer. The anchovies continue to break down. Individual flavors slowly disappear, melding into something far more complex than any single ingredient. Once the balance is just right, the sauce is filtered, bottled, and wrapped in its iconic paper label. Here's the truly wild part. Worcestershire sauce activates every major taste sensation at once. Sweetness from molasses. Sour notes from vinegar and tamarind. Saltiness from anchovies. Umami from fermented fish. Even a subtle bitterness from the spices. Your brain can't isolate one flavor, so it experiences all of them together. That's why chefs call it a secret weapon. A few drops don't taste like anything specific. Instead, they make everything else taste more like itself. It deepens the richness of beef. Brightens tomato-based sauces. Adds complexity to mac and cheese. And perfectly balances sweetness in glazes. As Worcestershire sauce traveled across the globe, different cultures made it their own. In the United States, the formula shifted slightly. Distilled white vinegar replaced traditional British malt vinegar. The result? The UK version tastes deeper and earthier, while the American version is brighter and sharper. Japan took an even bigger turn. Their version, often called USA sosu, frequently skips anchovies altogether and leans on soy sauce instead. It's sweeter, less intense, and plays a key role in tonkatsu sauce. In Mexico, Worcestershire shows up in micheladas and carne asada marinades, adding depth and punch. But the most unexpected place where it truly took hold is El Salvador. In El Salvador, Worcestershire sauce isn't just something you keep in the fridge, it's part of everyday life. Walk into almost any restaurant and you'll see a bottle sitting on the table right next to the salt and pepper. Locals know it as salsa inglesa or salsa parens, and they use it on everything. Eggs. Rice. Beans. Grilled meats. Soups. By the mid-1990s, El Salvador had the highest per capita consumption in the world, around 2.5 ounces per person each year. That might not sound impressive at first, until you remember this is a sauce measured in drops. Multiply that by a population of roughly 6 million, and the numbers become incredible. Why El Salvador? No one knows for sure. Some believe British sailors introduced it through 19th century trade routes. Whatever the reason, Salvadorans fully embraced it, weaving it into their national food culture. Because food doesn't belong to just one place. Once it spreads, people adapt it, remix it, and make it their own. Traditional Worcestershire relies on anchovies for its signature umami depth. But today, vegetarian and vegan versions exist too, using ingredients like shiitake mushrooms or tamari to recreate that savory richness. Staying true to its roots, Worcestershire didn't remain a single recipe. Over time, it grew into an entire family of sauces, each version shaped by the place that adopted it. So the next time you're sitting in a steakhouse and reach for that paper wrap bottle, take a moment. You're not just grabbing a condiment. You're holding a failed pharmacy experiment that spent 18 months aging in a forgotten basement. A sauce created by two chemists who had no idea they were inventing something that would survive nearly 2 centuries. A British creation that became a staple in El Salvador. A fermented fish sauce that even inspired plant-based alternatives. Its recipe remains locked away, known only to a select few. And sure, it's still tough to pronounce. But honestly, that's part of what makes it unforgettable.